What are we gonna do when we get back?
What are we gonna do when we get back?
I take a shower and hit the rack.
Take a shower and hit the rack.
Welcome to Charlie Mike. If you're a combat veteran with an entrepreneurial bug and want to know what highly successful combat veteranpreneurs are doing to transform their sacrifice and experience to create their visual reality, then this is dedicated to your inspiring and fulfilling future. And now your host, Dwayne Paro.
No way, gotta run, beat, lots of fun.
Invest in Yourself ebook is my free gift to you for listening to the show and becoming part of the CO Nation. To receive your free gift, please go to landmarklifecoaching.com. Thank you for joining us on this special edition episode. There are so many courageous champions who support our veterans that do it purely out of admiration and love for the sacrifice and service exemplified by our veterans, not for credit, not for recognition, and not for money. These courageous champions stand in the shadows of our veterans and do all they can to help make their futures fulfilling and empowering, because that's what each and every veteran deserves. Our guest today is Angela Cody-Rouget. She is the founder and the owner of Major Organizers, a residential organizing company. She has been building the Major Organizers brand, formerly Major Mom, since November of 2006 and currently has a team of 22 employees in Arizona and Colorado. She was featured on the military episode of Shark Tank on February 5th, 2016. Angela spent 14 years dedicated to serving her country in the U.S. Air Force as a satellite commander and missileer. She attained the rank of Major, and her husband nicknamed her Major Mom after their first child was born. After her son was born in 2005, she resigned her commission to be a better wife and mother to her 2 children. She is currently in the process of franchising her brand in order to create more jobs and opportunities for veterans and military spouses. She has 1 franchise location in Columbus, Ohio. Like most women, she sometimes feels torn between kids and career, and the balancing act is difficult. But she's thankful for a husband who is supportive. She also has kids that cheer her on because they believe in her. Angela was born to create order out of chaos. She is on a mission to raise up an army of liberators so she can restore order to the world, one household at a time. All right, Angela, well, welcome to the show, and thank you for being a guest.
Thank you for having me. I just love hearing that bio because I thought, I have some updates for him.
Oh, great. Yeah, that's always the case when we schedule these out, and the sign of a great company that's growing and things are changing for the positive. So that's always a good thing to hear.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you tell our loyal listeners all about your contributions to the veteran community. But before we get into your veteran support experience through your organization, can you give us an overview of your military experience?
Sure. I had a full ride scholarship at Indiana University via Air Force ROTC. And so I was a cadet for 4 years at a liberal arts school, which is quite an experience when you have your military uniform on, riding the bus with all the civilians, if you will. And then getting up for PT in the morning, still having a crazy college life, working 3 jobs. But my veteran really indoctrination of the military began at age 18. Then I was commissioned as a 2nd lieutenant and went to my first assignment at Lowry Air Force Base in Denver, Colorado. And I was in undergraduate space training, which is where I learned to do satellite command and control. And for a liberal arts major, that was a grueling school to go through with all the orbital mechanics and the crazy math and some of the crazy things we had to learn that, in hindsight, I thought maybe I didn't really need to know that level of detail of how things fly through space to actually command and control them from the ground, but they still make you go through the school. Then I was non-volunteered, which everybody knows voluntold and volunteered and non-volunteered, and what the difference of those 3 things, subtle differences between those. I was non-volunteered to be a missile commander. That's working with ICBMs, stationed down in the Launch Control Center about 60 feet underground, and did that for about 3 or almost 4 years when they were getting ready to voluntold me again, non-volunteered to Minot, North Dakota to do another 4-year missile stint where they were deactivating that missile. And that was a point at which I said, nope, I don't owe any more time. I am not going to do another 4 years of nuclear weapons. That was incredibly stressful career field. Very anal retentive, uptight professionals for a good reason, but it would be too much to do tours back to back. So I told my boss, my colonel at the time, I'd go anywhere. Just don't send me to another missile tour. He said, nope, sorry, we need you here. This is where the Air Force needs you. And I said, well, I don't owe you any more time, so I'm resigning my commission. And so I didn't resign the commission. I just got off active duty and went into the reserves for another 5 or 6 years. I was in the reserves in Texas and Colorado and had an amazing time learning about part-time reservists that show up once a month and 2 weeks a year, and I'd never been stationed with those types of soldiers, and so that was a great experience. And also, I'm the one that seemed very uptight and anal to a bunch of reservists and AGRs, so I learned to loosen up just a little bit in the reserves. But at some point when I had my first child, like you said earlier, I was a major in the Air Force Reserves, and then I had my second child 18 months later. Having corporate job, having real estate on the side, I had to decide that motherhood was more important than the military. It was a tough decision, but I did walk away from all of that amazing, basically 15 years total with ROTC with some great military experience. I don't regret a day I served, and I still am great friends with many of my comrades in arms.
Yeah, that's quite a history. Being in that type of career aspect of the military, I can imagine that those missile sites are not always located in the most, desirable locations.
In the middle of nowhere.
Right. Yeah, Minot, North Dakota was probably not high on your list of, I hope they put me here when you went in the military. So I can see where a career change at some point would be desired, because it probably doesn't get any prettier than that for those types of locations as much as they're needed. And so as you were transitioning out, did you know right away that you wanted to become an entrepreneur, or were you still doing your civilian type job for a period of time?
I was doing my civilian job for a little while, but I actually quit my civilian job before I resigned my commission in the reserve. So the civilian job actually went first, and then the Air Force career went second. And I still had real estate holdings and was still doing some entrepreneurial activities. And actually, I will totally admit that I was doing very intrigued by direct sales and MLM businesses since I was first introduced to them, maybe as a 22-year-old, 23-year-old second lieutenant. I was very intrigued by this prospect of having residual income and passive income, which made me start reading books like Rich Dad, Poor Dad and Think and Grow Rich. And that MLM and direct sales community, they have brilliant and amazing self-development programs, which what kind of keeps you coming back for more and wanting to do your best. So I definitely had that entrepreneurial spirit rise up when I was young and starting out in the Air Force. I didn't notice it that much as a kid. I did normal stuff like a kid, had lemonade stands, made peanut butter balls and tried to sell them, but I wasn't really in tune with my entrepreneurial background because my entire family told me to go to school and get a job. So I was just being smart and doing what they told me to do.
Right. Yeah. That's a common theme, that happens. And it's funny. I talk to at different places that I talk for coaching veterans in transition. That is one of the things I always say. What's the first thing we're asked when we go to school is, what do you want to be when you grow up? And that's all about what job are you going to get so that you can, support a family and live a comfortable life, and not, thinking broader and what can you contribute on a larger scale to society or the areas that you're interested in. And so, yeah, that's the crux that we all, that we all face at some point is, do I continue to just do the job kind of living, or do I really dig down deep and try to create something much like you've done? And so what kind of was that turning point where you said, okay, I've now officially transitioned out. I'm still doing what I was doing from a civilian side at the time. Now I want to go create something. What was that pivot point that said, you know what, this is what I'm going to do?
Oh, well, God has a way of making you pivot when you're not ready to pivot and pull the rug out from under you. So I would say I was fat, dumb, and happy with our real estate business, which is what was kind of my reason, my financial reason for getting out. Our residential real estate business was going great. And I thought, this is the time. My kids are under the age of 2, and I can get out, raise them, and then once they're in school, kind of go back to hitting it hard in the real estate world and entrepreneur world. But that didn't work out that way. What happened was literally 6 months after I resigned my commission in the United States Air Force, I had already quit my corporate job, which was, made me a breadwinner in the family. My husband's real estate business, a residential appraisal business, started to rise in aged receivables. Mortgages weren't closing. The appraisals were getting done, but the appraisals weren't coming in at what the person owed on their mortgage. And so then some appraisers were being asked to lie and up the appraisals. And my husband and I would never do anything like that, contribute to something. So we wouldn't lie and increase. So then they would say, we're not paying you for the appraisal. The loans didn't close. And then $20,000 in aged receivables is when we knew we were in big trouble. And because we were kind of entrepreneurial, mainly owned jobs, we didn't work for someone else. We owned jobs at that point. And you know what I mean when I say that. We didn't have an exit strategy, and we didn't have a stop loss. And so, again, the stop loss became, we have just gone through our savings. We've rented out all of our real estate holdings, including our own home, and moved in an apartment. And then the bottom fell out from there. Then we couldn't find a renter. And our house that we lived in, we had to short sell. And then we lost 2 of our rentals to foreclosure. And we just went into the vortex with millions of other Americans who got caught up in the real estate bubble bursting. My family almost disowned me for, the disgrace that I brought them, because they were like, well, how could you have let this happen? And I thought, well, I didn't really let this happen. This is happening. And we're pivoting right now. And so the pivot became, we have to create a business. We have to create something that creates money, because there also were no jobs. I was a major in the Air Force. I have an MBA. My husband has 2 MBAs. He's from France, so he speaks several languages, and there were no jobs. We looked everywhere, pounded the pavement, and we hunkered down and basically lived off nothing for a couple years. It amazed me that we were able to do it without credit cards. We had no credit cards. We had no very little money coming in. And so we pivoted, and one day my husband said, why don't you organize people's homes? You love those TV shows. You're always watching them, and you love the results. You love the whole process. And I thought, I do really like it. And at first, when he said it, I was watching one of my favorite shows called The Clean Sweep on the Learning Channel with Peter Walsh, a professional organizer. And I told my husband, hey, be quiet. I'm watching the reveal here. We'll talk in a minute. And he's wanting to talk about, hey, we've got big financial problems here. And I'm thinking, I don't want to talk about it right now. I just walked away from 2 careers to raise the kids for a few years. And so you go figure it out. And so he's like, well, no, you've got to help me figure it out. And he said, Angela, you should be doing what Peter Walsh does for a living. And at first, I looked at him probably with not a very nice wife look, and I thought, are you retarded? I mean, what are you talking about? That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And because, see, Dwayne, I'm telling you the truth, I was programmed to work at a big corporate job or military job, benefits, that's what I was still hanging on to. Mm-hmm. And so when I was ready to go back to work, I'm like, that's what I'll do. I'll be a manager, a leader, and I'll get my corporate job again. And my husband, Frederic, said, no, why don't you start an organizing business here in Denver? Well, that was 10 years ago, and I'm sure glad I listened to him because 10 years later, things are going very well.
Oh, that's great to hear. And I tell you, the struggles you went through, while they weren't caused by an entrepreneurial endeavor, it certainly gives you the fortitude and the resilience and that perseverance, so that you're like, when things come up in your business now, you're like, I got this. That's we've been through rougher, so it's actually one of those times in your life where you learn all these hard lessons that are going to serve you so well in your future. And clearly your business is doing quite well, and I'm sure you've been able to leverage those experiences to the positive side now.
Yes, and I think that military spouses and veterans have true grit that many Americans don't have, and that true grit just basically says, I'm locking and loading on this mission, and I will just keep putting one foot in front of the other, even though I'm not sure what I'm going to do tomorrow, but I'm just going to keep moving forward and make this happen. And the true grit of not giving up and saying, I'm going to grow this organizing business and the worst economy that, I've seen in my lifetime, and be able to come out the other end of it with that grit and determination of, all right, I'm going to build this business, started hiring employees, brought on a business partner, and, here we are 10 years later. And in the introduction, you said we had one franchise location in Columbus, Ohio, and I am happy to report to everyone listening that we have 3 franchise locations,
Nice.
Columbus, Ohio, San Antonio, Texas, and Montgomery, Alabama, in addition to the locations I personally own in Denver, Colorado, and Phoenix, technically Phoenix, Arizona. We're still kind of keeping alive, even though I have now moved to California.
Oh, wow, that is good growth for sure. It shows that, with, like you said, that grit, you can really get down to the brass tacks and make things happen. So that is amazing to hear. So listeners, we're going to go ahead and take a quick commercial break. And then when we come back, we're going to get into more of what Angela is specifically doing with the business and how they work. And if anybody's interested in franchising with them, maybe how they can go about doing that. So we'll be right back. Landmark Life Coaching's vision is to be the nation's premier coaching partner for inspiring and empowering those in transition. They partner with courageous groundbreakers and transitioning veterans to create fulfilling and empowering futures that they desire. They have partnered with various entrepreneurs and transitioning veterans to leverage their core strengths and implement the framework for the future they always dreamed of. Could you or anyone you know benefit from a success partner to bring clarity to your future or their future? If so, please check out landmarklifecoaching.com for more information and charliemikepodcast.com for the Charlie Mike Podcast, showcasing the successes of combat veteranpreneurs. Okay, we are back with Angela of Major Organizer. She was giving us a great, very transparent view of what she went through from the time she went in the military to the time that she successfully founded her own business. And as you can tell when you listen to this episode, there was a lot of ups and downs during that period. But boy, her and her husband were able to turn all those negatives into a significant positive that's not only positively affected their family, but is now positively growing and supporting veterans and military spouses alike as employees of their organization or potential franchisees. So before we went to break, Angela was telling us how many franchisees they have now and how many locations, which is incredible. And so, Angela, if you could give us maybe, just kind of a overview of what services you guys provide, and then we'll kind of segue from there into some of the franchisee opportunities.
Sure. At Major Organizers, we declutter and organize every room in your home, from the garage to the basement, kitchens, closets, drawers, anything in your home that you feel is too cluttered and too chaotic and is not functioning. We come in as a team of liberators, we call ourselves, in our camo pants and our t-shirts, and we come in to work either side by side with our clients, which is always a delightful process, or we come in and unpack a home maybe when the clients are working too much and they don't have the availability to even do it at all. So We will do either way. And at the end of the decluttering and organizing, one of our benefits of hiring a team of liberators versus a solopreneur is, one, we obviously can get much more done with 3 or 4 of us in the home on the same day, but we also, the synergies that we create as a team, we can divide and conquer. So we can have 2 in the garage, 2 in the basement, and then they finish up and move to other areas of the home. We've also had 6 liberators on a job at once when we felt we really needed it, when they were in a short time crunch and they wanted the home unpacked or they wanted the home organized right away. We additionally organize things into the proper organizing solution. So if they don't have an organizing solution, for instance, a lot of people want their papers organized, but they actually don't own a file cabinet or a sorter or any type of containers to hold them in, file boxes, file bins. We'll go shop for all those supplies and come back and implement systems that our clients have okayed. So we run everything by them and say, here's what we're thinking. Does this sound like it's going to work for you? And sometimes they say yes. Sometimes they say, well, I don't know. We collaborate and then execute. And that has been going, we've liberated so far today about 1,500 households. And, as we grow, we're liberating more and more people. And I have to tell you, Dwayne, what's really important is that it's not just about decluttering and, taking stuff to Goodwill for them and, clearing out their house and making it more peaceful. Something happens to the individual themselves. They look happier. The burden has been removed. And that's why we call ourselves Liberator. And that's why we say get liberated, because something internal, almost spiritual, happens for people who are living in a lot of clutter. And may I say, no, we don't work with hoarders. We're talking about normal Americans that just have a lot of clutter, a lot of disposable income or not, and they just have a lot of stuff. We are not a maid service. We don't scrub the toilets, scrub the floors, and scrub the refrigerator. We certainly do clean the areas that we are organizing, because that's the proper way to leave an area such as the kitchen or the basement or the garage. We sweep everything out, wipe everything down, but we're not scrubbing and doing the maid service. So I wanted to make sure I made that clear.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's some amazing service, and I can tell you that the liberating term, I picked up on that before you were describing it, that I could see where somebody who just doesn't know what to do, they've collected all this stuff over time, and they just have no idea what to do with it all, and then they don't really want to get rid of it because, it's like you say, it's not to the hoarding stage, and so they're like, I just need this organized so I know what I have. And so I can see how when you guys leave, there's just such a breath of fresh air for them to sit there and go, oh, I know exactly where to go get this. I know exactly where that is. And it takes stress out of their life, which is what we all want at some point. And so, yeah, that is it's a great service. I love that it's just about, not the, like you said, not getting down and, you can get a maid service anywhere, but that doesn't make, when they leave, that doesn't make your stuff organized in a orderly fashion. So, you guys, started out, like you said, you were doing the primary business and then you decided to franchise. What was that thought process like, when you start a business? What was that thing that said, I think franchising this would be a great opportunity?
It's so funny. That's a great question, because we were approached by probably 5 to 6 different people who helped companies franchise over an 8-year period. And I always said no. I said, no, I'm not interested. We're growing the corporate way. We're bootstrapping it. We bootstrapped it from the beginning with $13,000 from my self-directed IRA and a couple $1,000s from a couple of my vet friends and a high school friend. And that was all paid back immediately at 12%. But I said, we're bootstrapping it. We're going to grow slow and organically. And of course, that actually failed miserably. At one point, we were open in Chicago, Tulsa, Oklahoma, Denver, Colorado Springs, and we were getting ready to open in Washington, Seattle, Washington, because we had actually had employees move there, or we had people contact us saying, I want to work with major mom organizers. So I thought, oh, this is great. But what wasn't great is that the amount of money it takes to get each city up in terms of marketing and training was absolutely mind-blowing. And it was impossible for me and my business partner to run Denver and 5 other startup cities, or 4 other startup cities. And so one by one, we started closing down the locations and say, failure to launch big time, and went back to the drawing board. We said, okay, we're going to have to raise millions of dollars in order to go national, which was the vision we set probably in month 16 or 17 of the business. We said our vision is to be a national brand, most respected and recognized brand in the organizing industry. And once we kind of published that mission, told all of our friends and family, told the employees, there many times I thought to myself, God, why did I share that with anybody? Why did I tell anybody about that grandiose, ridiculously huge vision? Because many times I thought, I have no idea if this is actually going to happen. But again, grit, step by step. And wouldn't you know, we got introduced when we started thinking, okay, we're going to need capital to still corporately expand. Franchising was still like, oh, no. So when people called us, would you consider franchising? Nope. And so we went to go raise capital to corporately expand and slow growth. I won $40,000 in grants that are dog-eared for veterans at business pitch competitions, business plan and business pitch. And I spent 2 years of my life pitching and submitting plans and, won $40,000, which is no small change. I'm very proud of that. But the 2 years spent doing it took my eye off of sales and the Denver market. There's always so much you can do. You're either raising capital or you're selling. And it's hard to do both if you don't have someone else taking over that task. Well, lo and behold, we actually get an email from an executive producer of Shark Tank, and he said, we are looking for veterans for our veteran episode on Shark Tank this next year, and we're wondering if you would apply. And I thought, is this a joke? And so my business partner, I thought, is this a joke, a scam? Because those come across so much for us, especially with the name Major Mom. We got a lot of weird pervs. And so we thought, okay, let's check it out. So we emailed back and say, yes, we actually would be honored to apply for the show. Then the executive producer called me back on my cell phone and then sent me another email, said, submit all this stuff. At that point, to answer your question in a very long way, that was the point at which I decided to franchise. Something inside of me said, now is the time. If we're going on Shark Tank, we are going to announce the franchise plan for executing, because I had been hearing through all these pitch competitions and in the veteran community that veterans wanted to franchise. They didn't want to just start off building something from scratch, because you and I both know, and many listeners know, how hard it is to start from nothing. So I thought, you know what? Let me do this for my brothers and sisters and comrades. Let's join forces and build a national brand together. Then I started getting excited thinking about having veteran franchise owners as basically like business partners in each city. So then I was jazzed. We obviously were on Shark Tank, announced the franchise model. I didn't get a deal, but I was thankful for that door staying shut, because we're progressing slowly but surely, as we have for the last 10 years.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, and it's probably just the experience, right? Being able to go on there, and then it helped you to solidify your plans, your direction, just because you had that experience to weigh it against that. If you went a different route, this is kind of how it would go. So yeah, so that's just a great experience. And having done those pitch competitions, I'm sure that was helpful. I watched one last week at a Bunker Labs event, and it's pretty intimidating when you get up there and there's several other companies pitching for that same money, and you got to be on your game when you go in there to do that. And I mean, just elevate that up to go on to Shark Tank. So that in itself is just an achievement in itself.
Yeah, I think that, go 2 years of pitching. I mean, it's just ridiculous timing. I am a woman of faith, and I do feel my steps were ordered, and that as long as I kept grabbing opportunities, it was preparing me for an unknown opportunity on Shark Tank, because I'd already been pitching for 2 years. So I was kind of in the groove of, oh yeah, I got this. And
Yeah.
I know my numbers inside and out. I've been asking panelists of judges asking me. But the funniest thing is I won 3 out of the 5 business pitch competitions that I participated in. One, I was against all male veterans in the tech space, so there wasn't a chance I was going to win there. And that's just true, that's okay. But when I did my first business pitch competition, I knew in hindsight why I didn't win, because the judge asked me, well, are you going to franchise this concept, or are you staying with the corporate model? And I said, I'm staying with the corporate model and the expansion model. And I could see his face like, you idiot.
Yeah. Wrong answer. Yeah. Yeah, that's funny.
So I thought, I'm such an idiot. I keep getting all of these knocks on the door, franchise. And what was my deal? I have no idea. I was using somebody else's story, and I think this is powerful, Dwayne, because we hear veterans do this all the time. Well, I don't have a business degree, so I'm not going to start a business. Well, I don't have marketing experience, so I'm not going to start a business. Well, I don't have this. I can't. And the stories that we start building for ourselves become real. And my story was, oh, the franchise world is so litigious, and I have friends that make no money in it. And one time at a veteran event, somebody looked at me. It was a civilian, and they loved working with veterans, like you coach veterans. This guy was just coaching veterans, and he said, why in the world does someone else's story have to be yours?
Yeah.
That made me, I was so embarrassed by that question, because I thought, he got me.
Mm-hmm.
He got me. I'm cornered. Because there is no smart answer that can come out after a question like that, except it doesn't have to be my story.
Yeah, no, that is a powerful question. And, I think that if a lot of entrepreneurs, ask themselves that at different points, right? Because as much as you shouldn't compare your business, or you shouldn't compare where you're at with your business compared to others, human nature says you do. and so, having that question in your arsenal to ask even yourself, why does that story have to be mine? Obviously the answer is it doesn't, and it shouldn't. And so it breaks down those barriers and allows you to think outside of it. Because I had made a comment once, I'm in a mastermind, and I made a comment about nonprofits in the veteran space, and the individual said, well, he's in another vertical, and he's like, yeah, but I could say that about the vertical I'm in too. But obviously my business isn't like that, and it's proven to be, better. And I'm like, yeah, that's true. So it's the same concept as you're adopting that other story, making it yours, which is not a success. So once you break that mental barrier, it probably just opened up amazing number of possibilities. Yes,
I think that reconnecting to many things, whether it's things about manifesting your destiny. There's a lot of biblical scriptures saying that once you have a vision and it's clear and you've scribed it and you're clear of your why you have that vision, there isn't really anything that can stop that vision from happening. Now, the timing may not be what I like. I mean, I would thought, oh yeah, because you get into the entrepreneurial VC world and you're like, in 2 years, I'm going to be a billionaire. And, then you're like, I meant 10 years later, I am almost a millionaire. Okay, never mind.
Right.
And people say, well, are you a millionaire yet? Nope, but I'm on my way.
On your way. That's right. And that's the key, is keep going, persevere. Don't stop, because we don't know what the timing is. We don't know what's coming up. We don't know what could step in as an obstacle in even tomorrow. So that is great advice. So as we're running out of time here, I wanted to give you an opportunity to give our listeners some information on how they can learn more about your business, as well as more about, in contact with you.
Sure, thank you. They can email me directly, Angela at majormom.biz, B-I-Z. They can call me on my cell phone, 303-549-0034. I am always available to a veteran to brainstorm, mastermind for a few minutes, anything that I can do to help. If you think you have a Shark Tank worthy idea, please do contact me. I can put you in touch with an executive producer at Shark Tank. Why not throw your hat in the ring and try? And then you can also go to majororganizers.com, which is our new brand after Shark Tank, and majormom.biz is also still up and running, which has kind of different content on each site. But those two brands will run side by side for the next 50 years because my nickname is Major Mom, and that brand isn't going away. And I own a company called Major Organizers. So we'll continue growing both brands.
Great. Well, awesome. Well, thank you again for being on the show. And most importantly, thank you for your service, not only to the veterans, but to our country.
You are so welcome. And I want you all to have a majorly organized day or evening. And definitely call me if you are living in chaos and clutter. We can find someone to help you.
Remember, loyal listeners, we are the home of the free because of the brave.
Thank you for tuning in to Charlie Mike Podcast with Dwayne Paro. Our objective is to bring successful veteranpreneurs to help inspire and provide insight into what helped them become successful, with the hopes you can take away various strategies you can implement in your entrepreneurial journey. Visit us on iTunes, leave us a rating and review, and let us know what you thought of the show. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Hoorah!